Morning all. I had an interesting game on Thursday. I was playing again on board 1 for Muswell Hill Chess Club. Actually, I believe Alex should have been playing board 1, higher rated, and also he's won 5 out of his 5 last games, 2 against FMs, and we've just seen in the previous video actually against FM Eames how he sort of demolished Eames. But anyway, and also I was a bit down on my loss from the Monday night. So before the game, during the day, I was mulling over a little bit, how could I improve, and is there a pattern to my losses? And someone on YouTube mentioned that actually that previous game against Andrew Stone was like Toy Story again. And actually I thought he was right. And then I thought, hold on a sec, isn't it maybe a classic weakness of any tactical dynamic player that if they are neutralised, they're going to end up with a strategically bad position? It's just the nature of the game. If you play for dynamics and tactical play, that's the downside. You can see evidence of that in the first Karpov-Kasparov match. Kasparov was nearly wiped out. He had to drop his Tarrasch defence with the isolated Queen's pawn, and he went on to a more solid Queen's Gambit decline, and I think later the Grunfeld defence. But this idea of Toy Story, of a player, both players are trying to tell their stories, tactical or strategic, and if you're trying to tell the tactical story and it fails, then you can be left with this strategically very bad position. But anyway, I wasn't really put off for I stuck to my style in this game, trying to play dynamic aggressive. And okay, so after d4, he was also a bit late, and it was supposed to be a 190 from their club, Willesden Brett. He's about 170, Fulton, and I played him before. I don't think he was that pleased to be playing on board 1 as a sub for the 190. So anyway, I thought I think I played the King's Engine before against him some time back, maybe 2 or more years ago. So I thought I'd surprise him with d5, and now the Albin counter Gambit, which I was unlucky not to win in the North Circular League a few weeks ago. So I thought it gave me a good game, and actually in this game it seems to give me a very good position very quickly, as we're about to see. So I play d4, and okay, he plays knight f3, standard move, knight c6, and now he plays a surprising move, bishop g5. Now probably it's to do with maybe wanting to encourage f6, but I just played bishop e7, and not minding, of course, if he exchanges, he's increasing my development. I could take like that, I could go here. But also I noticed if he takes on e7, I've also got queen takes e7. If I temporarily leave the d pawn hanging, check. Here I've got knight takes d4 here. So this would be great for me, winning a piece. Knight c3, queen takes b2. I thought this would be okay. Although maybe rook c1 there. So anyway, I was happy with queen takes e7 as an alternative to knight g7. But he didn't do that actually. He just played bishop f4. And I do have a forcing move available here. If you apply the docking computer concept, there is a forcing move. But it's sort of structurally weakening. I wonder if you can guess it. If I give you 10 seconds here. What move did I play here? It's non-stereotypical. So 10 seconds starting from now. Okay, I played g5, and it's a flank and move, but it's trying to get more control of d4 really. After bishop g3, I can now play g4, drive this knight back, and already I thought my position looks quite good, quite active. So I play bishop f5 here, as though there's a threat also of knight b4, crudely to c2. So he covers that with a3, and I just play queen d7 now. Not really worried about b4 here. There was a game at Hastings where a grandmaster played actually this opening with black and crushed an IM, and he didn't worry about b4, b5 because sometimes it's got other symptoms like the diagonal or the central pressure. So I thought here it's no big deal. All I do here is queen e6. So I've got a just in time knight takes e5 here because the knight's no longer defending e5. So I thought really good position here, queen a4, and now I simply castle queenside. And this is a lot better than I'd expect from most King's Indian positions. I think I had a tough King's Indian struggle against them, once, and I really loved this position that I've achieved here. It looks very dynamic and aggressive. I don't mind losing a7 particularly. I didn't see this as particularly dangerous because I've got things like knight d3 check on the cards if needed. Maybe that's really good. The check here, I think I just moved the king. So I don't think he'd want to allow that, nor would he want to take on e5. Queen takes, queen takes. I've got a wealth of options like d3 with that diagonal. This check is not enough. There's only the queen and nothing else attacking. So I thought great position here after castling queenside. Wonderful after 11 moves. So he plays f4. And by the way, I'd also responded earlier to this game on that same day. Someone was going on about losing games in a row and about their rating. And I'll write the reply in the description of this video. I think I did a good reply about, you've got to focus on your internal qualities, and any rating like FIDE or your national federation doesn't actually measure your internal qualities as a chess player. And this player was under 1800. I think, for example, your basic understanding of openings and endgames, tactics and positional play, are like your internal qualities, and really, if you lose a few games in a row, it doesn't really reflect on you. You've got to still try and evolve. I think evolution is key. So really, when I was questioning, before this game during the day about, is my style of play valid, tactical, dynamic? I really think it's the resources you make to make the exceptions to the rules work. Because if by playing dynamically, often you are breaking rules. But here it's paid off. I've got a very active position. I think Toy Story is going to work here. And that was in the back of my mind now. This Toy Story concept that both players are telling different perspectives at the same time. But if you're a tactical dynamic, you've got to be wary of the longer term. And conversely, if you're strategic positional, trying to neutralise counterplay, you've got to be aware that the danger of that style is being hacked. Karpov-Kasparov typifies this really. So anyway, G takes f3, knight takes f3. But what structural weaknesses have I got here? It's white that seems to have structural weaknesses. And then I suddenly noticed also there's a weakness of the last move here. There's a pawn hanging, c4. Why can't I take c4? I thought c4's hanging, I'll take it. Because actually this tempo game doesn't seem that effective. I can attack something else, queen c3 now. And I think it would be disastrous, any rook move. Well, there's not too many rook moves. Here's there might be check. Anywhere else there's bishop c2. So he actually has to bring his queen back now. It's a pitiful position, I thought. But he has got potential coordination on c7. So this c7, I want to do something about that. I played bishop c2 to force the queen to c1 to use up that c1 square. And then I bring more pieces in. I thought e3 is a bit of a juicy square for a knight. So why not knight h6 here? Not worried too much at the moment by rook a2, because I thought bishop a4. Say takes, I'm on d1 if I want d1 here, or c2 looks pretty tasty. In fact, what does he do here about c1? If he plays this now, rook d1, queening. So it's, after the king moves, c1 queen. So beautiful position, I thought, here. Still, he plays bishop f4, which is quite sneaky. It's a way of untangling his pieces. If he moves this, he's got this as a check. It's a good move. It's in the circumstances. I didn't realise the strength of it now. So g3 now. Okay, so he's going to be on that diagonal, but I thought, well, you know, juicy knight on e3. So I played the knight to e3, let him play the check, king b8. I still loved my position. After king f2, I was wondering for a bit about knight d5. I thought, how can Toy Story... I was literally thinking, how does Toy Story go wrong here after knight d5? You know, the tactical dynamic play. I thought, well, maybe actually, you know, it does. Because actually, he might have this as a resource, bishop h6. Funny enough. Keeping an eye on e3. You know, not wanting this exchange, of course, because then queen e3 would be dangerous after taking off that bishop. So the bishop h6, and I haven't got an h-pawn push. And actually, is white's position that bad? Because he's now getting, you know, this rook a2 is on the cards in variations, and this could spring up to be not such a terrible position if I'm not careful. So actually, I find a different approach, but actually, engines like, I think, knight d5 here. Technically, how far is black up, you might be wondering. Let's just quickly check this out. Okay, with deep rook of 4 we'll do. Knight d5 is probably actually the best. When I play the second, no, f6 is actually the move I was tempted to play, funny enough. So I wanted to open up this f file. So either knight d5 or f6 are good moves apparently. So f6, I wanted to tear open this f file to get it as king, you know, to make it a bit drafty, the king safety. So bishop takes f6. Of course, I'm exposing the e file as well, and my rooks are now beautifully in the center after rook he8. And I was reminded actually of the Karpov-Kasparov Gambit game, where he had beautiful centralization. And maybe that's a typical thing, you know, against strategic players, that, you know, your dynamism can be quite impressive aesthetically if you can get it going. And here I thought it was, you know, aesthetically very pleasing. Every single one of my pieces is really, really aggressive. And here he played an interesting exchange sack. Now, if he doesn't, I think he's going to be in big trouble pretty soon. He plays rook takes c2. Knight takes c2. Now, the trouble in concrete here, you know, I might be threatening at some point knight d5 now, and d3, for example, and maybe, you know, the bishop getting on this diagonal is going to be dangerous. So this exchange sack gets rid of some of the pressure. More importantly, it gives white a new asset now after bishop f5. It gives white, if he wins this pawn, a passed h pawn. So there's a longer term prospect now available for white with this exchange sack. So that's the idea. I take on a3, and in fact it's not so bad from a technical evaluation perspective now for white. Apparently this is only about a pawn down or something. Yeah, pawn down. So actually I think, did I go wrong? That's the question with rook he8. I'm not really sure. This seems to be a good idea then, rook c2. So it's an interesting idea to win this pawn. It's giving a longer term asset. So anyway, let's proceed. So knight takes h3, bishop takes, and I thought, hold on a sec. I don't really want to. Well, I wasn't sure about knight takes b4 here because of knight e4. And if I'm forced to take, as that video to take is a mistake, I think it's quite evident here actually, because now I'm faced with a lot of pressure. This wouldn't be that hot, and he's attacking the bishop, and this bishop's protecting the knight. So I don't want to give him pressure by taking stuff. So I played rook e7 to try and double on e2. So he plays knight e4. I go for this exchange now in this position. I take on c1 now because it's not so unpleasant as before. So I attack the knight here. After the smoke's cleared a bit, I'm exchange up and a pawn up. But he has got these two connected pass pawn runners potentially. So strategically they're a bit of a problem. So I still had on the back of my mind now, this could be Toy Story gone wrong because of these passed pawns, this h pawn and this g pawn. So what will I do about that? Will I have to sort of counter this with these pawns, these guys. How will I get them going? For the moment he attacks my rook, I play rook e7, and it seems as though, you know, this should be a threat that he's worried about. But actually, you know, he might have king f3s and stuff. For the moment he actually plays, curiously actually, maybe against d3, he's a bit concerned about d3. He gets the rook out of the way with rook a1. But now it goes to a sort of trapped position. After knight ac2, he plays rook a4. And the rook has no squares here, here, or here. These knights are kind of covering all the key squares. He's only got a5 for the rook. So I take that away, and now threaten actually to march my king. To just munch the rook, if possible. You know, if I move a5 first, then I've got this manoeuvre, which would get the king going for the ending, which is good, and get my pawns going a little bit. So he starts pushing his long-term asset, which he sacrificed the exchange for. He plays h4, and I start using my longer-term assets as well. Can't all be tactical play. So maybe that's how you can make Toy Story work. You combine tactics with strategy with an emphasis on tactics, and I think an emphasis on sometimes perverse tactics which you didn't even expect, you know, you were playing on. You might have been playing for a king attack and you end up winning a pawn or a piece unusually. You know, that if that makes it work, that makes it work. So here a passed pawn though is to be pushed again, and now king b7, and it looks as though this is a dangerous maneuver. He comes back now to get his rook out of prison, because it's really imprisoned here. Hasn't got any moves. So rook de8 now, and he plays king f3, and I start as though I'm going to munch the rook next move. But he has got, of course, bishop takes b4, attacking the rook on e7. He plays it actually here, though. Bishop takes b4. So the rook's out of the knight prison anyway. But I get one step closer with this capture now. This pawn is ready to roll. So we've got a bit of a pawn race, and I kind of love these situations. As you know from this league, I seem to be lucky with the passed pawns this season, when both sides have passed pawns on opposite sides of the board. For some reason I'm doing well in this sort of position. So, and both kings are kind of diametrically opposed here. Okay, so rook a2, now check, and the king gives me a tempo game with this beautiful knight e3 check. Again, aesthetics comes in. I love the knight on e3. It's a bit like the Kasparov knight on d3 in that classic octopus game. So the aesthetics of this game really appealed to me actually at various phases. And here I thought it's cute, this mate threat, rook f1, just to threaten mate with the knight. Not only functional, but not only aesthetic but functional, because where is the king going? So here it prompts a weakness of the last move. And I think as humans, you know, the more and more difficult the position gets, there should be evidence of weaknesses of the last move. You don't need to constructively win the position. The opponent should break of their own accord. Actually, I told my friend Alex this, and he, you know, gives me the example of Petrosian. You know, if the opponent makes a mistake, let them make another one, make it worse. They can blow up of their own accord, and he does here actually with g4, because now there's a great fork opportunity. I wonder if you can spot it if I give you 10 seconds starting from now. Strategically, you know, this is an issue, these connected passed pawns. Be nice to destroy them. That's the clue. So 10 seconds starting from now. Okay, rook f4, just forking, so painfully getting rid of his, for him, the connected passed pawns, which was the main reason for the exchange set, the passed pawn potential. So h6, I'm happy to get rid of that one, and get rid of two knights for a rook. It's not too difficult now. If he lets me go back, you know, h7, rook a8, these pawns are on armada now. He puts his rook to a8, and I just play casually knight d5, knowing that if the pawn dares to step forward, there's the check. So he stops that check, but now of course I can bring the rook behind the pawn with rook takes e2. He plays h7, I play check, and I just casually play b3, knowing that I can sacrifice the rook and play b2, and then if rook, here I can play knight c3. getting the rook, and then I've still got 3 connected passed pawns. It's trivial, all of these passed pawns. So he plays rook f2. Apparently even rook takes f2 is winning now. It's all over. I just casually just take here, and here he resigns. There's no way this rook can handle the king coming to c4 and d3 king c3. You know, these pawns are just marching forward the knight. So he resigned here. I thought it was a fun game, a bit of a confidence build, because I've got another tough match coming next week in the Hearts League. So these leagues, you know, they're swings and roundabouts really, but it seems some of the luck I'm having in a particular league is amazing. Maybe that, you know, it's like confidence seems to have a context to it, that if you're doing well in a particular league, or maybe even a tournament each year, it seems there's a backlog of confidence there. I think maybe that's the same, you know, Nigel Short seems to be doing well in Gibraltar each year. You know, maybe that's a thing, that confidence has a context to it. I'm less confident in other leagues at the moment than the Middlesex. But last year I'd only won 1 game, and now already I've won 4, and there's still about 3 matches to go. So I don't know, but I've been also a bit lucky in various games, and the board ones which should have been 190-200 haven't been. There was 1 default before this, so I've had a default win as well, but 4, you know, on the board wins, 1 draw and 1 loss. So it's a great league for me, this, for some reason, this year, the Middlesex League. Let's do an overview and summary. So quite aggressive, the Albin counter Gambit. If you want an aggressive Gambit weapon against d4, maybe consider this, because I think some strong players in the past did use this this weapon of choice. So Albin counter Gambit, but Bishop G5 is not theory. This cannot be theory. Engines like actually this idea of G5. It's hyper modern. If you go back to even the early Alekhine match against Bolojabov, you know, do you remember the G5 G4? It's to do with central control really. It looks a bit odd, but it's boosted by central control. You know, these knights are a bit stumbling with each other, stepping on each other's toes here. And I can even aim to castle queenside now. So I aim to castle queenside, and his king's a bit in trouble, but he drops that pawn. Weakness in the last move is evident. I make sure that there's going to be minimal coordination on c7. Bring the beautiful knight to e3, but he does untangle a little bit with this check. Try and open more lines to his king and the centre generally. He sacrifices the exchange to get an outside pass pawn. So the strategic potential, strategic backfire. Toy Story can go wrong, even though I'm material up. So I've got to fight strategically. I've got to get my pass pawns going to make sure the story is going to end okay. So okay, and I was tempted for, pardon me, I was tempted to sacrifice the exchange back here in this position after knight e4. I was dreading him playing this a little bit. I was thinking rook takes e4. If I had done rook takes e4, I think a significant amount of my advantage would have been blown there and then. I think queen takes c is significantly better than rook takes e4. Just to be a pawn up. It's not a big deal, this extra pawn. In fact, not a big deal at all. I mean, minus 0.28. So keeping the exchange and going for this simplification is a must now. So to take is much better circumstances for taking here. Taking is not always bad. It really depends on the position. It's a slight improvement over the previous position now. After this rook e7, because I'm fending off c7 clearly. So he's forcing me to take on c1. But then I'm taking on h7. I'm robbing him of the bishop pair strategically. It's achieving a few things. I'm getting that b pawn, which is important for these pawns to be liberated later. So it's the battle of the passed pawns scenario, and he imprisons his rook in this episode of the game. Then he unimprisons it, but my passed pawn potential is growing here, And my knight's hook is interesting, and it's interesting I don't use d3 at any point. It's just that d4 is good as a hook for e3, which kind of weaves a mating net threat, which causes a weakness of the last move, and then I can wipe out his strategic assets, those two connected passed pawns. Okay, I hope you got something from this game. Keep up your internal quality, keep up your choice here if you're a dynamic attacking player. Is the price we all pay is we're going to get strategically crushed, but try and make the story end well. Maybe, you know, you have to switch sometimes into pass pawn mode even if your material up, because they really do grow immensely in value towards the end game. You've got to play like that for the end game, even if you're an attacking dynamic player, to understand that your attacks are not going to always end decisively for a king hunt, that you've got to win the end games if needed. So here at the end game it was important to win. Comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much.